In this video, I want to take a quick survey of the types of encryption methods on Wi-Fi. And I know you've seen these before, and of course you use them at home, but our book only gives a handful of these, like 6 or so, and says, hey, this is the order from weakest to strongest. But it really was not complete, and I want to give a little bit more complete version of it. So first of all, the weakest type of encryption of all is, of course, open network. This is what you would find, say, at a Starbucks or a McDonald's. No encryption, no authentication. Next, we came out with WEP, Wired Equivalent Protocol. Now, some people call it worst ever privacy, which is not a bad description. This is really easily broken. I've done it several times in classrooms with students, and it's really easy to demonstrate in about 5 minutes time. Okay, we discovered very quickly that WEP was a problem. And the problem was not so much the algorithm for encryption that it used as the way that it used it. But anyway, we decided we'd come out with something better. That something better was Wi-Fi protected access. And there are 2 versions of this. There's WPA Personal and WPA Enterprise. What's the difference between WPA Personal and WPA Enterprise? Well, if you go way back here to, I believe it was back around page 7 or so, we introduced these ideas: open system authentication, shared key authentication, and extensible authentication protocol. Well, personal is this one, shared key authentication. If you remember, this is where the password is the same on your device, your computer or a laptop or a phone, and on your wireless router. So as long as those passwords match, you're in. Whereas WPA Enterprise is this EAP style, where everybody has a unique password. Now, in order to pull that off, again, you would need a server that's called an 802.1x or radius server that allows each person to have a unique ID and password in a database. Those are typically not on the systems themselves, on the routers themselves. You need a separate server in order to pull that off. So that is the difference between those two, between personal and enterprise. The other thing you'll notice here is something called TKIP, Temporal Key Integrity Protocol. Now, what in the world is that? Well, here's the thing. We wanted to use a stronger encryption method called AES. And we just simply didn't have it ready yet. In other words, our computers at the time, most of our computers didn't have AES encryption capability on them. It was not going to come out until, well, if you're old enough, you might remember Windows XP. And if you really are old enough, you might remember something called Windows XP SP3 or Service Pack 3. Well, it was when Service Pack 3 came out that AES was finally put on the operating system so that computers were capable of AES encryption. But we had to do something really, really fast in order to cover the fact that this WEP was so insecure. So we used this temporal key integrity protocol. I'm not going to try to explain how it works at this point, but it is a strengthening of the encryption that was used on WEP. Now, it's still using the same underlying protocol, the RC4, but it is using TKIP to enhance the security of RC4. You may remember that I said, well, it wasn't the algorithm itself that was the problem with WEP. It was the way it was used, and this fixes the way it was used. Well, WPA with TKIP was not our final goal. It was AES. And so the next one, the next highest, is WPA2 Personal and Enterprise with TKIP. Now, wait a minute. Didn't I say that we needed AES? Yes, but not all devices were ready yet. And so when WPA2 came out, we made a lower end version of it called TKIP in order to replace the WPA TKIP. But then we have what we really wanted to get at, and that was WPA2 Personal and Enterprise with AES. AES encryption is the government standard still today for encryption. It is hard to break, and so it's still a very good encryption method. Eventually, we also came out with something called WPA with CCMP. Now, CCMP, you're going to love this one, stands for Counter Mode with Cipher Block Chaining Message Authentication Code Protocol. Yeah. Counter mode with cipher blockchaining message authentication code protocol. Say that one 5 times. Well, WPA Personal and WPA Enterprise with CCMP still use AES encryption, but they added some capability to it to make it even stronger yet. Finally, just a couple of years ago, we came out with WPA3 Personal and Enterprise, and those are still not totally rolled out. Not that many devices have them, although we're getting there. And there's also an Enterprise version with 192-bit encryption mode. So this is the very highest level that you're going to get. These are fascinating, and learning them is really important in order to understand a lot about how wireless security works.